Hi, friends. In this new segment and fresh episode of a video lecture, today we are going to understand a new story that's the Rattrap. This story is penned down by Selma Legerov. Selma Legerov, she was born on 20th November 1858 and she passed away after her literary contribution to the literary world on 16th March 1940. So let's know more about the author Selma. Selma Lagerlöf was a Swedish writer whose stories have been translated into many languages in the world. A universal theme runs through all of them, a belief that the essential goodness in a human being can be awakened through understanding and love. The story is set amidst the mines Sweden rich in iron ore, which figure large in history and the legends of that country. The story told somewhat in the manner of a fairy tale. So this story, the Rattrap, it has a, a moral. So the story is based on values, uh, human ethics, and it tells a lot about life and how one should lead our life based on the good values and good temperament and positivity and good attitude. So maximum Selma's literature is best on the universal theme. So that's why her maximum stories have been translated to many languages in the world. So she's one of the famous author of her age. Initially, let's understand the various characters which are reflected, which are developed by the author in the story. The very first character, that's a peddler with a rat trap, who is a vendor who used to sell a rat trap, and a middle-aged person. Then the second character, and old man, a crofter, and then a master smith in the Ramsazo iron mill in Sweden. This is the third character, master smith. Then helpers in the mill, blacksmiths. So these were laborers, these were helpers who used to work in the iron mill, Ramsazo. And then the next character, that's somewhat old person, a senior person, iron mill owner. And the last character who brought changes in the life of a peddler, that's Idla Wilmanson, a daughter of the iron mill owner. So these are the prime characters in the story, which are very nicely developed, and they perform their roles in a very fine way, and they each character is very important in the development of the story. So uh, with these characters, author has narrated a story. She has crafted this very fine moral story in a very fine way. One more thing can be added with all these characters, that the metaphor of the rat trap serves to highlight the human predicament. Material benefits are the trap that most human beings are prone to fall into. Human beings do have a tendency to redeem themselves from the dishonest ways, as does the peddler at the end of the story. The characters of the blacksmiths display the typical attitude of manual workers and laborers for whom work is the first priority, and parasites of the human society are drags on the fruit of their labor. The master blacksmith notes a haughty consent without honoring the intruder with a single word. Evidently, he regards the tramp as insignificant. And Miss Idla Wilmanson is the eldest daughter of the owner of the Ramschow Ironworks. Moving forward, now let's understand the story and the sequence and the happenings, incidents, events in the story with the help of main points. Once there was a man who used to sell small rat traps made of a wire. These rat traps were made by him in his free time. He used to collect the material required by begging from stories or big farms, a big stores or a big farms. Still, his business was not earning him many profits. Therefore, he had to beg or steal in order to survive. His clothes were old and torn. His cheeks were lowered inside due to malnutrition, and one could easily see the hunger in his eyes. He had naturally been thinking of his rat traps when suddenly he was struck by the idea that the whole world about him, the whole world with its lands and seas, its cities and villages, was nothing but a big rat trap. It had never existed for any other purpose than to set beds for people. It offered riches and joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing, exactly as the rat trap offered cheese and pork. And as soon as anyone let himself to be tempted to touch the bed, it closed in on him. Then everything uh, came to an end. The man was thinking about the rat trap, and suddenly a thought came to his mind that the uh, okay, so according to him, as soon as someone tries to comfort himself with a joy, food, shelter, he at once gets trapped into the rat trap, which is known as a world. No one in the world had ever been kind to the rat trap shelter, so he started thinking ill of others. It became a favorite pastime for him during dull moments. These thoughts made him happy, so he continued with the thinking ill of those who were known to him. He would imagine those people who were already trapped in the rat trap of worldly things, and also those who were about to get trapped in it. One evening, the rat trap seller was walking very slowly. He saw a little grey cottage which stood by the road. He went up to the cottage, knocked at the door so as to get shelter for the night. Generally, he was not held by anyone, but this time he was welcomed by the old man into his cottage. He was a lonely old man without wife and kids. The old man was happy to get company that night, so the old man gave him some porridge to eat and then shared his tobacco with the guest. After this, both played cards till bedtime. The rat trap seller felt that the old man was not only liberal in sharing his porridge but also his secrets. He tells him that he was a rich man when he used to work on the rented farm. As he was old now and couldn't work, so he had to depend upon his cow for his living. The cow gave enough milk every day to be sold in the factory that produced cheese and cream. The old man said that he was able to earn 30 knors. 30 knor means currency of Sweden. Knor is a currency of Sweden. Last month because of cow's milk. Then the rat seller did not believe the old man's words that a cow could earn him so much. Therefore, the old man took a leather pouch which hung on a window and took out three notes of a 10 knorr, each which were old and crushed. He showed those currency notes to make him believe his words and then kept them back in the pouch. Next morning, both the Rattrap seller and the crofter woke up early as the crofter was in hurry to milk his cow. Even the Rattrap seller felt that as the owner of the house had awakened, so he should also leave the bed. They both came out of the cottage at the same time. The old man locked the door and went to his work. The Rattrap seller also thanked him and went his own way. After about half an hour, the Rattrap seller returned to the cottage. He broke down the window pane where the pouch hung. He took away the money, kept it in his pocket, put the pouch back at its place, and walked off. The peddler was quite happy as he had money in his pocket. He then thought of walking through the forest as it was unsafe to walk on the highway because he feared being caught by police. So initially it was not difficult to walk through the forest, but later on it got confusing for him as he forgot his way. He tried hard to walk in the right direction, but in vain, as he found himself at the same place again and again. He was finding himself at the same place again and again. At this point of time, he started thinking that now he himself was caught in the trap of the world, just like other people. He was fooled by the bet of money which he had stolen from the old man's house from the pouch. The forest seemed like a prison full of trunks and branches. It was like an impassable prison. As it was the month of December, it got dark early. As it got dark, his hope of escaping the forest reduced. The danger to his life increased, and so did his feeling of being hopeless. There was no way left for him, so he sat on the ground and was so tired and terrified that he thought this was his last moment and soon he would die. As he laid his head on the ground, he heard a very strong regular sound. It was a hard sound that was coming at the regular intervals. He soon realized that these sounds were the sounds of a hammer, strokes from the iron mill. He thought he could find some people nearby. With this thought, he gathered some strength and started walking with great difficulty towards the direction of the sound. The Ramsjo Iron Works was a large plant which shut down few years ago. The Ramsjo Iron Works. It was a large plant which had shut down few years ago. It had a smelter, a rolling mill, and a forge. Okay, forge means a shop where metal is heated. Barge, barge means a large flat bottomed boat for carrying freight on canals and rivers. So rolling mill means machine to roll metal into sheets. That's a rolling mill. And a rolling mill and forge. Smelter means a machine in which metal is melted to form into a shape. A smelter. So it had a smelter, rolling mill, and a forge. In summers, long and flat bottomed boats carrying the material would come down the canal, which led to a large island lake for supplying material to the mill. And in winters, the roads turned back because of the coal dust that came along. due to the transportation on the charcoal crates. Uh, on one long dark evening near Christmas time, the master smith and his helper were sitting in the dark forge, which was built near the furnace. He was wearing a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. Both of them were waiting for the big iron which was put inside the furnace fire to be ready to put on onto anvil. Anvil is a heavy block with a flat top which is used to shape the metals. They took turns to stir the liquid, which was very hot, as they could bear the heat for a few minutes. Each of them would return, sweating profusely. One could hear different type of sounds in the forge. There was a big bellow. Bellow means a air bag that emits a stream of air used for blowing air into a fire. Okay, bellow. There was a big bellow which was blowing air in the fire with a great sound. Also, there was a sound of a cracking coal. One could also hear the bang of charcoal which was being shoveled by the fire boy. That's a shovel means a move, maw means a jaw, and clatter means a bang. Whipped, it means beaten with a whip here to hit something. Here we can consider as a hit, to hit something. And one could also hear the bang of charcoal which was being shoveled by the fireboy, the sounds which were coming from outside the mill. There were of the waterfall, the high speed north wind which hit the raindrops against the brick tiled roof. It was due to these different type of sounds that a blacksmith didn't realize that a man had opened the gate of the forge and had entered, till he came and stood near the furnace. Many homeless people used to get attracted to the lights of the forge, which peeked through the window panes, which were covered with a black powder of a burnt coal. They would seek shelter there. They would warm themselves with the help of a burning fire. As the blacksmiths were accustomed to visitors, they were indifferent to the man. They just looked at him. The Rattrap sailor's appearance was similar to that of other wanderers. He had a long beard, was dirty, wore old worn out clothes, and had a bunch of rattraps hanging from his chest. So sooty paints means a window paints covered in a soot. That's a black powder produced with the coal and wood etc. burnt. So that's sooty paints. The peddler tried to seek permission from the blacksmith so that he could stay in the forge for a night. He allowed the peddler with an arrogant consent, haughty consent. Haughty means arrogant consent by just nodding and didn't say a single word to him. Prominent means important and tramp means a vagabond, wanderer. The peddler also said nothing because his main aim was to warm himself and sleep. The owner of the Ramsajo iron mill in those days was a very ambitious person whose aim was to sell only the finest iron into the market. Therefore, he used to keep a check on the workers both during the night and the day. The owner was on a night inspection, visit them. The peddler entered the forge. Unlike the blacksmiths, the ironmaster at once noticed the peddler who was sitting so close to the furnace that steam was coming out of his torn clothes. He not only went near him but also removed the wanderer's hat that was bent to one side so that he could see the man's face clearly. Ragamuffin means a person in rags. Uh, Danes do something that one considers to be beneath one's dignity. Slouch hat means hat bent on the one side of the head. Acquaintance, you know very well, that is associate or of the information. Then the owner was arrived, iron master, okay, was there. So at once he noticed the peddler who was sitting so close to the furnace, and he found that peddler was there, a new person, a newcomer was there. When the ironmaster took off the peddler's hat, he mistook him as an old acquaintance, Niels Olof. The peddler didn't know him, nor had he seen this man before, but he thought that if this man mistook him as his old companion gave him some money out of pity. So thank you for watching the first part of this segment. Let's tune in with the second part. Thank a lot.